So I'm here with Jennifer Pryce. Jennifer, you are the Chief Executive of Calvert Impact Capital. Calvert has been in the business of supporting social environmental investing, focused investment for over 20 years. I understand you've raised more than $1.5 billion from private investors. I'm wondering, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about investing in the sorts of projects that would see more reforestation happening and more conservation of nature? What sort of advice would you give to an investor who might not have thought about that until now?
Right. Great to be with you. And in response to your question, in thinking about investors and engaging their capital, I would encourage them to really get into asking themselves three questions. Really about how much capital they have, amount of assets. If you have $100,000, your option set is very different than if you have $100 million. And so that's pertinent. Another one is, what type of capital do you have? If it's philanthropic, if it's debt, if it's equity. And it's really because different capital can do different things. And there's different needs for capitals in projects and communities in investing, full stop. And it's just good to understand what type of return along the lines of impact that you're expecting and that your capital can provide. And the third one is, you have to be aware of where you keep your money. It sounds very plain and odd, but what the reality is if your money is in a large finance center, like a Morgan Stanley or a JP Morgan, and not to pick on any, but just a money bank of that size, they live under certain regulatory, legal, and operating realities that make it very hard for them to engage your capital in ways that may align with forestry, with sustainable finance outcomes that you're wanting to have. And it can be achieved, I have found, especially in the public markets, finding mutual funds that have environmental, social, and governance screens, but it might put you in the place of being an advocate for that with your financial advisor, with the gatekeeper who manages your assets. So I do believe, because of that, you might need to find resources to educate yourself about what you're seeking to achieve with your money, and be ready to bring that to your gatekeeper, your advisor, so that you can then find and place your assets aligned with the impact you're looking to achieve.
Thank you. And you mentioned a little earlier that you see a lot of promise in this field.
Yeah.
What kind of opportunities do you see for investors who are interested in impact investment? Just maybe a nutshell idea.
Yeah. So I do see a lot of promise. And that promise, though, needs to be realized through access. So you hit it. What products, what opportunities do you see? That's the access. And that's honestly where we're still struggling some. But there is opportunities. Our note, not to put our note out there as an opportunity, but it is known as the gateway to a lot of this work. It's a fixed income product. It does have a modest return, but also has lower risk. There's other mutual funds that have very active ESG, environmental, social, and governance screens that really tailor to water, that tailor to forestry. You can find them. They take digging, but you can find them. That's great. And then there's also emerging funds. If you have assets that are higher in magnitude, if you're accredited an institutional investor, there's opportunity there in investing in funds that then on-lend or invest in forests. And that might be more appropriate for you because you have some risk reduction in lending to an intermediary rather than having the exposure of one forest, one project as your credit, as your investment. The challenge is they are hard to find. And what we have found is that it takes a little digging. It might take you putting some capacity in your shop to it, and making that decision that it will take a little while to find the opportunity set before you can actually activate your capital.
Is there a way that companies like yours, or some of the people who are here today who are interested in all of these issues, can start educating financial advisors, like start at that end? Because you're right, it sounds like the people who are interested need to sort of do that work themselves. It would be great if financial advisors could also say, by the way, I've got these other kinds of portfolios. Some I'm sure do, but for more to do that and to say, like, this is another way of looking at your investing. Is there a way to kind of communicate to financial advisors?
Yeah. So there's some, and actually, ironically, right now, meeting in DC is the U.S. SIF Forum, U.S. Sustainable Investment Forum, that attracts all sorts of financial advisors in the hundreds to talk about issues just like this. Conversely, there are registered investment advisors, which are smaller financial advising businesses that can be more progressive and more self-educated along these issue areas. You can move your money and find these types of people, but then a lot of it comes down to you. We have found it's a very retail solution right now, but that's where we're at individuals asking their advisors for this conversation and their advisors coming back and bringing it to them, but it's a process.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the symposium.
Thank you.